Do you hate the Phoenix Strike Assassin? Maybe you think it's a little too overpowered for the current state of Diablo 2? It's well and truly the best build in the game at the moment. And I personally am on that side of the fence. I think it's a bit too overtuned. And those who've been following the live stream will notice I have, on ladder, gotten every single class to 99 except for one, and that's the Assassin. Now, the reason for that is because once Mosaic was introduced, I was actually going to do a Whirlwind Assassin. I thought that'd be great. Whirlwind Trapper. I used to play Assassin a lot. I love the class. But as soon as the Phoenix Strike Assassin was introduced into the game, it felt like it was the only class to play because of how strong it was. It's like you kind of feel like an idiot, kind of wasting your time on the grind to 99 unless you play Phoenix Strike, right? So now I've got to the point where I have to play Assassin because it's the last class on the list, right? So what did I do? I tried to look for a build that could match it, if not surpass it in some ways. And ultimately, I don't think it's a better build, but I think it's definitely worth trying out. It's very cool. It's not necessarily a new build, but it's sort of slept on. Not many people know about it. And so I'm going to introduce that to you guys today. And that is the Dragon Tail Assassin. Now, I've prepared one on single player. My boy Mossy here. And I'm going to show you the gear and just give you a rundown of how it plays, right? Now, unfortunately, you don't have to play it this way, but this is probably the best way to play it, right? You still got to use Mosaic. Now, so yeah, you could still call it a Mosaic Assassin. That sucks. But ultimately, it's not your Phoenix Strike Assassin where you have to put the sunglasses on and everyone hates you because you're blinding the screen and you're just wiping the screen and no one gets to play the game, right? It's more in tune with how it should be, in my opinion. So, what are the skills and how do they work? Obviously, this is a Dragon Tail build, so you max that out. And then the only other thing you need to max out is Tiger Strike. And Tiger Strike, look here, gives you nearly 3,000% bonus physical damage. And the reason you use this and max it to 3 charges is once you have 3 charges, Dragon Tail calculates its fire damage, its AoE explosion that it does when you kick. It converts your physical damage into fire. And that's why you use these two together. And then you use maybe 1 point in the Cobra Strike to get your charges for mana and lifesteal. So you get your 3 charges will give you 280% mana and lifesteal. And then you're sitting pretty. What you could do with the rest of the points is, if say you're working through progression and you are struggling with fire immunes and you don't have a way around that, you can do what you would do with the normal Phoenix Strike build, is you could implement Balls of Thunder, Blades of Ice, and Phoenix Strike. You could implement those, but not necessarily max them out, but just to give you a bit of supplementary elemental damage of different elements to help you pierce through those enemies as you're progressing through the game, but not really necessary once you get to the end game finished build, right? Then, personally, maxed Fade. The reason I maxed Fade was to offset the Bone Break charm that I'm using. I'll get to that. And then with Weapon Block, I maxed that out, but I honestly don't think you need it because Dragon Tail has like a knockback effect, and I feel like I'm never really getting hit. I'm actually just sort of either one-shotting everything or kicking it and knocking it back. So you probably could save even more points here. In my demonstration, this is the build that I'm using, but I would recommend potentially just popping one into Cloak of Shadows so that you can deal with, if you do get overwhelmed, you can just throw that out there and they're all sort of thrown into disarray a little bit. And then I would also recommend putting one into Death Sentry at least, so that you can have Corpse Explosion going off to help you do a little bit more AoE, because this isn't a screen clearing AoE build. This is more of a sniping champion packs and doing pretty solid AoE, but not quite the same as Phoenix Strike builds, right? And then on top of that, if you wanted to, because this is a fire build, you could even go Wake of Inferno with the fire traps, or you could even go Wake of Fire, sorry, not Wake of Inferno. And then on top of that, you could do, if you wanted to get really tricky, you could keep on your left and right click, you could keep Force Move and Death Sentry on, and then use Shadow Warrior to have her automatically cast what's on your left and right click, and she'll be casting out Death Sentries while you have your Tiger Strike and Dragon Tail bound to other buttons. But I haven't got that far with playing around with the build, but that's where I'm going with it, okay? And as for the gear, we have Mosaic Claws so that you don't lose your charges, right? Alternatively, you could use Phoenix Shield and a 6 fire-faceted Crystal Sword, or something that has Fire Pierce, right? Then we have Flickering Flame as the helm, obviously fire build, and the Resist Fire Aura is going to offset the Flame Rift, and you can pierce fire damage, pierce fire resistance. And then we have 2 Assassin Skills, 20 FCR Amulet, but you get away with 15 if you want to get to the 65 breakpoint in this particular build. And then because we've lost 25 FCR comparing to the Phoenix Strike Assassin with it having Griffin's Eye, we use Mage Fist on the gloves. And honestly, this is really good option. You could go for a 220 gloves or a 320 martial arts gloves, but I think I'd rather have the FCR and the fire skills. That 1 fire skills goes into Dragon Tail because it is a fire skill. Then we have an FCR ring, doesn't really matter what it is. And then we have Arachnid's Mesh to hit the FCR and mortar skills. And then we have a Raven Frost, cannot be frozen, so we don't get slowed down and beaten up to death while we're fighting the monsters. So there it is. And then Charms is just all skills as you would expect. Bone Break to get through the Fizz immunes, because if something's Fizz immune, your damage isn't just going to convert to fire and then do fire, okay? It will offset that damage before it's calculated. So you do need to get through Fizz immune. If you don't have this, you need something like a Decrepify or an Amp Damage to get through it. And then yeah, Flame Rift, and then some Resist Charms, doesn't really matter what you have. And yeah, Assassin Torch. And then on swap, we have All to Arms, the usual suspects, Spirit. That'll get you to the next break point beyond 65 if you want to cast even faster and get around quicker. And then if you want to do even more damage, you know, the huge one taps that I was showing in the clip before, right, and nuking bosses, you can use a Lacerator on swap with your CTA. And if you amplify damage hit a target based on the calculators, if you have a player's a amped Bale and you use this build, you'll do about 1 million DPS. It's absolutely insane, okay? It's crazy numbers. You can slaughter bosses, right? And so that's what we're dealing with. And then stats, right? You don't have to do this, right? But because it's physical damage based, the calculator will work in terms of boosting your damage if you put all your points into strength, right? If you put as many points as you can into strength, it's a bit glass cannon-y, right? I admit. But you'll do way more damage. It will add like just a ridiculous amount more damage. So you can boost this up. And then the plus side to that is your Enigma and be like a Sacred Armor, a really high defense armor. Or even as you're playing through the game, before you get Enigma, you can have a really high strength requirement armor, right? And then even in your helms, right? They can also be really high requirements. So that's really cool, high defense. And then enough dex to wear your gear. And then personally, I feel like if you get to about 1,000 life, 900 to 1,000 life with vitality, it's probably enough. If you have CTA as well, I think it works out. So max strength, enough dex, and just enough life. Now you don't have to do this route. If you want to be tankier and a lot safer, you'll still do a lot of damage if you don't max the strength, okay? Trust me, you'll still do a lot of damage, but if you want to really max it out, this is what you do, okay? And then for the Merc gear, we have Andariel's Visage, Chains of Honor, and Infinity. Infinity will pierce through the fire resist, make you do way more damage, so that's pretty straightforward. My sheet damage at the moment, only 16k, but I'll quickly go show you what happens when I get a few charges. Look at that, 96 to 144k. And that's without my Mercenary present. So I'll show you guys some footage of some gameplay, and I'll talk about some pros and cons when comparing the Dragon Tail Assassin to a Phoenix Strike Assassin. With the Dragon Tail Assassin, I think it's a more viable game where you can start playing it early on and you can play it through all the way into hell, whereas Phoenix Strike is strongest at the end game once it's fully geared. And this is a big one. The Dragon Tail Assassin has no screen blinding effects. and it also has a resist fire aura, so your friends are gonna love you. Whereas with Phoenix Strike, it's just full clearing the screen, it's blinding everyone, and they don't even get to play, they're just following them around, right? So that's no fun. And the Dragon Tail Assassin also has cheaper gear, no griffins, no 320 gloves. It also snipes champions and uniques a bit more efficiently if it's just a single target, or just a few cluster mobs, cluster sniping a whole pack. Whereas obviously Phoenix Strike Assassin's has the ultimate screen clearing AoE. But in terms of efficiency, if you're trying to get to 99, for example, and you're trying to snipe champion packs, if you are using the Dragon Talon as a finisher with your Phoenix Strike, because it's a multi-kick move, you're actually going to you find yourself getting animation locked all the time, right? Because you might just kill something in 1 or 2 kicks, but then you're stuck doing 3 to 5 kicks. So, whereas if you're using Dragon Tail, bang, 1 kick, that's it, right? And then when you're looking at immunities, I think that it works a little bit better. I think the Dragon Tail kicker works a little bit better with just Asunder compared to Phoenix Strike. I think Phoenix Strike relies a bit more on Infinity and negative res gear to function versus immunes, but that's only because of such high raw damage output coming from the Dragon Tail Assassin. Typically, fire actually struggles more. And on top of that, speaking of fire damage actually is a lot more consistent than lightning. So for example, if a lightning damage spell does 1 to 1,000 damage and you got an average of 500, fire is going to do 400 to 600, but you're not going to have to worry about any of those low rolls. And then, of course, speaking of damage once more, with, of course, single target boss damage, Dragon Tail is going to kill those bosses extremely quickly. Whereas Phoenix Strike is going to be better at faster general mob clearing. Of course, on top of that, Phoenix Strike's just an overused, meta-spammed build. Everyone's sick of it. So Dragon Tail just gets the unique, rarely played build. Like the brownie points for playing something cool and different. And it's also easier to set up charges on this build. You just claw Tiger Strike up if that's all you need, and then maybe Cobra Strike if you need the leech. So you go claw, kick, boom, that's it. Whereas with Phoenix Strike, you're constantly juggling and it can be clunky, and you're trying to keep your charges up and you're panicking about getting all your charges kept up, and it's easily interrupted. So you don't have to worry about that if you're playing Dragon Tail. And then the knockback, they're both very safe for their different reasons. Dragon Tail knocks back enemies and keeps you safe that way. Whereas obviously Phoenix Strike's massive AoE crowd control can just keep you safe very easily. I would say Dragon Tail is a bit less safe of a build, but it definitely does work. And it does struggle quite a lot with fire and physical immunes. And that's one downside to Dragon Tail Assassin, but of course, just like with the Phoenix Strike, if you're going with the lightning damage, you can always diversify and put points into those other charge skills to do different elemental options. The thing is that Phoenix Strike is better at doing that than Dragon Tail, because the synergies work with Phoenix Strike, so overall you're going to do more damage. If you're using, say, Claws of Ice or Claws of Thunder, like those synergize with Phoenix Strike itself, not with Dragon Tail. So it's going to be potentially Phoenix Strike wins in being more versatile against elemental damage options. And of course, Dragon Tail can then also get overwhelmed by large amounts of mobs, and Phoenix Strike is better at crowd clearing and dealing with AoE, large AoE amounts of monsters. So as a result, Dragon Tail does require a bit more positioning and timing skill, but Phoenix Strike in the end is just an easier, more brainless playstyle. But we're all sick of it. We don't want to deal with that anymore. So I think Dragon Tail is, with the pros and cons lined up, I think it's definitely a strong competitor, and you don't feel like you're playing like a completely busted build, but it's definitely extremely strong, like a very, very, very strong top contender. And so that's the rundown of the build. What do you guys think? I think I'm gonna thoroughly enjoy playing Season 11 with this build. I look forward to live streaming my grind to 99. I look forward to playing with you guys. It should be a lot of fun. And yeah, what are your thoughts on the build? Do you have any input? How would you change the build? There's a lot of potential different options you can go for here that I could get into. And maybe I'll save that for another day if I test things out, see how it goes as I play to 99 and see what I figure out, what works, what doesn't. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for if you enjoyed the content and want to see more. And yeah, I'll catch you guys around. Laters.